We'll call the meeting to order. We'll call the roll now, please.
President Knobloch,
Here.
Vice President Gillen,
Here.
Treasurer Rayner,
Here.
Secretary Sislo here, Director Becker,
Here.
Director Ertel,
Here.
Director James,
Here.
Director Nutting, Director Ramirez,
Here.
Director Tausen,
Here.
Ex officio Marthaus.
Here.
We have a
Okay, so we have a quorum. We'll get started. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. It'll be led by Gary Becker.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, just for your own information, we're experimenting up here with filming this meeting. It's not going to be sent out until we have a chance to look at it and make sure that the sound is okay. We just don't know at this point. We're going to give you a brief description of what's going on in this meeting. It's not the normal meeting, okay? This is not a regular business, POA business meeting. Our purpose tonight is to make some decisions about how to conduct regular business meetings. We have to decide dates of the meetings, start time of the meetings, whether to hold open to the public meetings or closed meetings on a normal basis, the format of the agenda that will be used during regular meetings, how to implement procedures for public comment sections before motions are voted on by a board, a procedure to place an item on the agenda, when to start the budget process for 2021. The POA uses January 1st through December 31st as a fiscal year, so obviously we need to start on that now. Next year's budget should be interesting because it'll probably be February or March before we really know the effect of some of the covenant expirations. In my opinion, we'll probably have to make some very conservative guesstimates, and we will decide on which committees to form tonight and who will be on those committees. The next part is just some information. It's really basically for the board members, but it needs to be said in public. Officers and directors get their power by participating in board meetings and voting on motions. Outside of board meetings, board members do not have the authority to tell an employee to do anything. The GM handles the day-to-day operations and he takes his directions from the board. The president does have some extra authority, as evidence if you read the job description in the bylaws. Committees do not have the authority to tell employees what to do. Again, that's the GM's responsibility. We certainly expect everyone to follow these guidelines. If you participate in social media, now that you're on a POA board, anything that you write or post is going to be interpreted by some people as if you're speaking for the entire board. Obviously, that is not true. The board's official position will be communicated on social media by POA e-blast, the official Facebook page, and minutes on the POA website. So all board members are asked to be just very careful in what you post on social media. As the covenants expire, the POA has to implement a new business model that encourages residents to voluntarily join. In my opinion, the POA can start by doing everything in public except for personnel and legal issues which have to be handled in executive session. We have to point out the benefits of being a member of the POA and actually try to increase the value of the membership. Since we're called a country club, that seems to denote exclusivity. And that actually causes us problems. We're a community club, we've always been a community club, but yet we're called a country club. The latest demographic information I've seen shows that the average age in here now is about 47 or 48, and that about 20% of the population is 18 years or younger. Looking here, and that doesn't exactly fit the... So that means the POA's got to figure out some ways to have more activities for age groups like that to encourage POA membership. How do you do it? That's a good question. Finally, the Hancock County Assessor has said that if amenities are closed, We will all see a reduction in property values. The amount lost will be determined by the market. Any loss of property values will have a negative effect on all of us individually, plus the city, the county, and the Hancock County school system. So whatever decisions are made here in the next few years could or will have a major effect on all of us. I realize everybody wants to have one single, simple solution to solve our situation. We've all got to face reality. That does not exist at this time. So we need everyone's help and input to try to solve our problems. Working together, I think we can come up with the best possible decisions. And now we'll go on to the rest of the agenda. Normally, when you have a new board, they have about 30 days before they have to get to this point. We've had 3 days. Okay, so it's it flows, ebbs and flows a lot every 15 minutes, it seems like. Okay, starting on the presentation. Excuse me, that was it. We're going to give a list now of items to the general manager that the new board members need to review. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll just hit some of the highlights. We need an organizational chart from the general manager so we can figure out how many employees we have and where they are. Immediate overview of the financial situation presented to the entire board. A copy of policies and procedures manuals. A meeting with the GM and attorney to provide updates on all active POA lawsuits. Need a copy of the POA's disaster management plan. A copy of the POA's loan agreement for the COVID-19 loan. And we're asking the GM and the attorney to investigate the possibility of recording and showing live the POA meetings. We actually have about 20 things on the list, but that's just some of the highlights. So I'll give it to Mr. Abity. We'll let you know. Greg, would you please stand up? This is Greg Abity. He's the general manager, in case you don't know. Sitting next to him is Gus Reichten, if I'm saying it correctly. He's actually the POA attorney, and sitting next to him is Darren McGinnis, who's the controller. Okay, so we're going to handle this a little differently than you would normally do. I've actually written, and you have a lot of the information. We do have a few changes along the way. The first thing is the board meeting dates and times for the next 2 years. Okay? It just says the board shall meet for the appointment of committees and for the transaction of any business as soon as practicable after the adjournment of the annual meeting. That's why we're here tonight. In the past, they've met on the third Monday of each month as the official board meeting date. You actually have, everybody's got a copy of this, of the actual meeting dates is included. So we need to go through that, and starting now. We're required to have an annual meeting on the third Saturday in June each year, or as near to that date as practical. We're required to have an open meeting on the third Friday of each March and October. So you should have a copy that shows when these dates are. So we need to have a motion to approve specific meeting dates. Then if we can do that, and second, then we'll open it for discussion if we want to move any of these things. Does anybody want to make a motion for that?
I'll motion. That we accept it.
Okay, Mr. Tozan makes that motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Gillen will second that. Since you made the motion, you get the first shot.
I reviewed the dates, everything is there. We're not in conflict with any of,
Now they can hear.
we're not in conflict with any of the other council meetings. Looking at these dates, we should be not any problems. I don't talk loud enough.
Nope.
I'm not used to this. It's on now?
Yeah.
Okay. I've reviewed the dates. We're not in conflict with any of the other council any council meetings, and there's no reason why we shouldn't go forward with them as they are.
I have a comment then. If you look, starting on Friday, October the 16th, we're required to have an open meeting according to the bylaws. Now, I've never seen a description of what it actually means by open meetings. I assume that they meant, starting originally, most of the boards probably held closed meetings all year, and they were requiring them to hold these 2 open each year. I don't know that for sure. But if you look, the next meeting, the required open meeting would be on Friday, October the 16th. then our regular meeting would be on the 19th. We can ask the attorney or anybody else, if we hold a regular meeting on Friday, October the 16th, which would be counted as our required open meeting, does anybody know if that's a problem? Okay, so that, we haven't had anybody commenting on that, so then we could eliminate the Monday, October the 19th meeting, because there's no use having one on the 16th and then the 19th. As you-
That also happens in 2021 also.
Right, as you look in 2021, we've got a similar situation. On March the 15th, we have a required meeting on March the 19th, and that's an open meeting. So unless somebody objects, we can drop that one also?
The 15th you're talking about dropping.
Right, drop the
Okay.
15th. Then as you move into June, you've got to have the one on June the 19th, a required annual meeting. The annual meeting is run completely different, it's by itself. So we can't hold a regular meeting during the annual meeting. So we would have, on Saturday we would meet, then we would meet for our regular monthly meeting on June the 21st. As you move down, you have Friday, October the 15th is a required open date by the bylaws, open meeting date. But we would have one scheduled on October the 18th on that Monday, so we could cancel that one. Any thoughts? Okay, and then we go down into 2022. We would have the March 18th required open meeting, so we could cancel the regularly scheduled March 21st meeting. Okay, so we agree on that. And then we'll have a new election on June 18th. Okay, so we've eliminated those. Anybody else have any other comments? All in favor, just please put your hand up. Okay, it's unanimous. We have to add one item that I meant to add first, but I forgot. We need to add this motion. We have a motion on all existing committees established by the Board of Directors of the Diamond Head Country Club and Property Owners Association be dissolved immediately. That does not apply to the Violations Committee, and it does not apply to the Architectural and Engineering Committee, because those are required in the bylaws. But this refers to the committees that are set up by the board. So we need to dissolve all of those so that later on we can restart them. Anybody want to make a motion to that?
I make the motion.
Mr. Hertel makes that motion. A second?
I second.
Okay, Ronnie James seconds it. So, any thing you want to say, Mr. Hertel?
No.
Anybody else have any ideas? Okay, all in favor of that, please raise your hand. Okay, once again, it's unanimous. The next thing, and like I said, we wouldn't be doing it this way if it was a regular meeting, okay? The next thing is the start time. In the past, or last couple of years, they've been starting at 7 o'clock. No public bodies that I'm aware of anywhere start meetings at 7 o'clock at night. Okay, now they used to hold their executive sessions before that, I understand that. But everybody starts at 6 o'clock or even earlier. I suggest, or we'll make a motion, so I'll do it, that we actually start at 6 p.m. If we have to have an executive session, which would deal with only legal or personnel issues, it would be at the end of the meeting. Anybody want to make that motion?
I make the motion to start normal business meetings of the POA at 6 p.m.
We have a second?
Second.
Mr. Tozan seconds it. Mr. Hertel, any comments?
No.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So, I'd like to know if we're going to implement some sort of mechanism where people that cannot make that meeting use Zoom or some other item to attend the meeting.
Excellent question. I can't answer that question right at the moment. but we can certainly try and look into it. I don't know a better way to answer your question.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any other comments on that? Hopefully, we will be at a point within the next month or two to be able to do some sort of filming so that people can see.
Not filming, sir, I was talking about actually having, a good majority of the board is retired. I'm still working, I believe Mr. Martinhouse is still working, things of that nature. In order for us to be present at the meetings, will we be able to have a call-in, Zoom meeting, or anything like that to allow us to actually attend the meetings as well?
So,
Mr. Marthouse?
sorry, so from my experience, and based upon the way the rules and bylaws are written, it doesn't explicitly allow voting to be done electronically like that. But that's something to look into, to double check that, but I believe, unfortunately for us, that's the case. And
We can, if no one objects, we can look into that with Mr. Abity and with the attorney and see what we can or can't do, and we'll get back to you, okay? Well, this is not a time, I'm sorry, tonight to ask questions on this thing. It's just not that kind of a meeting. Okay, so we had a motion and a second. We had some discussion. Anybody or no other questions? All in favor, please raise your hand.
So until we answer that question as to whether or not they would be able to vote during the time that we're having the meeting, can you really make a decision that's the time that we want to start?
I think you can, because we have to meet, and everybody else, all these other places meet starting at 6. And I understand your situation, I just don't have a perfect example for you, and we'll do whatever we can. We have done what I was involved in the past, tried to do it over the phone and stuff like that, and that's troublesome, just because of connections and everything.
Well, that's also the reason that we're publishing when the dates will be, so that anybody who's working can make arrangements so that they can be here. That's the reason we're going out 2 years, so I don't see a problem.
Okay, so once again, I'm sorry, you want to say something?
Yes, sir, I do appreciate that, but unfortunately, my job, sometimes there is a time when I will be traveling. I do appreciate that we have published dates in advance, but sometimes there's an emergency I have to take care of, but I also want to make sure that I'm present for any business that the board has to take care of.
I fully understand, and we will do whatever we can, but I think we have to understand also for the rest of everybody, we can't just set meetings up for when every individual says he or she can be here, because we no telling what would be going on. But we will do everything possible to do it, okay? All right, now, finally, a vote. Please raise your hands if you're for this. Okay. 2 no votes, Mr. Marthouse and Ms. Rayner. Okay, the next one is with open meetings. We are proposing that we hold all open meetings meaning open to the public, except for special circumstances. I mean, we've got the COVID-19, we've got them in here tonight, but who knows what's going to happen with all the rest of us. So would someone like to make a motion to hold all open meetings except for special circumstances?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Ms. Rayner makes that motion. We have a second? Okay, Mr. Gillen seconds it. Any discussion? Ms. Rayner, you want to say anything?
No, sir.
Anyone else? Okay, show of hands. We want to approve that. We'll hold all open meetings except for special circumstances. Okay, it's a unanimous vote. Thank you. Okay, the next thing, the board, each new board has to actually decide on the specific agenda format that they want to use. You should have one attached to the papers that were given to you. I'll just go through it briefly. I'm not going to spend a great deal of time with it. you can see it's the call to order and then the Pledge of Allegiance, then the minutes. Minutes are required at every meeting. We hope to be able to do it electronically, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Minutes will not be read unless a board member actually requests that. For approve the meeting agenda, sometimes stuff happens at the last second. We had something today that happened at 4:30 or 4:20. So you have to be able to add something to the agenda at the last moment or take it away if it's no longer necessary. So that's what that means. Reports as needed. We have the general manager who would give the status of operations, issues, projects, finances, and so forth. Board members for issues and topics of interest, committee reports as needed. The next thing, we have a POA member comments on agenda items. The idea here is to let the residents vote, let the residents provide the board with their input before the vote is taken. Okay? That's the idea. Everybody that I know of uses a 3-minute time limit. I've got a little device that actually will do that, and it'll, at 2 minutes it turns green, at 2 minutes and 30 seconds it turns yellow, and at 3 minutes it turns red. Okay? And if you've ever spoken in public a little bit, you can say a heck of a lot in 3 minutes. Okay? So we could use that. The next thing, it says see attached info. I'll explain that when we get a little bit further down. It says unfinished business. If something is tabled, it automatically goes on the next month's agenda. So that's where it would go there. Now, if there's a new motion or a new business, motions can be made by any officer or director. The chair will assign the floor to only one board member at a time. Okay? All board members have a chance to speak if he or she wants to. Everyone needs to stay on topic. It'll be up to the chair to keep everybody on topic and not go on a tangent. All speakers are going to have to avoid any personal attacks or references. Handling of proposals or promotions, they require a second, as you know. The chair will recognize the author of the proposal to give a short explanation of it. The chair will ask for comments, questions, amendments from other members. Any proposal to amend or table does require a second. You just can't do it by yourself. Chair will close the debate when no further debate is indicated. As we've already done, the voting will be by a show of hands. The chair has one vote, no veto power. And then the chair will announce the vote with majority ruling. All voting will be done by a show of hands, and that's kind of that part of it. Then you will have POA members' comments on non-agenda items. Remember, we have talking about comments on agenda items first. So as you get now, this would be for non-agenda items. Again, we would have the 3-minute time limit, and we'll get to some specifics on that. And then we'll simply adjourn. The chair will ask, and we'll adjourn and say when the next meeting is. Does anyone want to make a motion to use that format on the agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Becker makes the motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Gillen seconds. Mr. Becker, any comments?
No, sir.
Anybody with a comment? Everybody's quiet tonight. Okay, then we'll call for the vote. Please raise your hand if you're for this. Okay, it's a unanimous vote again. So we've approved the agenda format. The next thing is the approval of minutes. It's worthwhile to approve minutes by email. If we meet on the third Monday of the month and approve the minutes by email in a timely manner, the minutes could be published in the next edition of the Diamond Head News. The deadline for the Diamond Head News is usually the 13th of the month, with the publication of the articles the following month. Okay? It would be nice to use some modern technology a little bit to do this. So I have in here a motion to use email to approve minutes. However, we found out today, we were notified that you need to have a unanimous vote to do that. Since one of our members is not here, we cannot do that. So we need a motion to table this which means it will come up automatically at the next meeting, assuming that he is here. Does anyone want to make that motion? Mr. Gillen makes the motion. We have a second?
Second.
Mr. Tozan seconds it. All in favor, please raise your hand. The voting is unanimous there. The next thing is on the public comments procedures. This will be a new situation for a lot of people. Public comments have to include behavioral expectations. I'll just leave that open for the moment, okay, from the people who are speaking, but it also means that board comments should include behavioral expectations, okay? We actually have all these things proposed, but we need to let the attorney look at it first to see if there's any conflict with state law, okay? So again, we want to, I have the guidelines for it right here. It talks about time considerations. And then we want to have the written guidelines, which we could give, we would publish so people would know ahead of time what's going on. I'm not going to read it all, but there's all kinds of things about addressing the chair, not saying Mr. Jones is ridiculous or, picking out somebody like that. Basically, the behavior expectations are modeled courtesy and respect, encourage speakers to do the same thing. Members, excuse me, I'm not sick. Members in the audience do not have the right to disrupt a meeting. The board will prohibit booing, hissing, clapping, since these inhibit free speech on both the elected officials and the public. And they need to develop a plan of action with the attorney in case somebody gets out of hand. We really don't expect that. But there's some other things. So we would like to have a motion to table this, and we'll give it to Mr. Reichten tonight and let him review it. He can bring it back to the next meeting for us. Anybody want to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Ramirez makes that motion.
I'll second.
Ms. Artel seconds that. Any comments at this point from anybody? Okay, if you're in favor of that, please raise your hands. Again, that's a unanimous vote. The next item on the agenda is a request for action form. You have to have a way to get things on the agenda. Any board member up here can put something on the agenda, okay? But what we have is a form. What you have is just a copy. It's nothing special. We'll fix it up so it's much nicer. But you'd have to submit that at least 7 days ahead of the meeting to get the item on the agenda. You'd have to send it to all board members and to the GM at that time. And it's got 3 things on it: the proposal itself, what you want, the goal of the proposal, the financial impact of anything, and also any attachments that are needed. Anybody like to make a motion to adopt this form? Mr. Tozan moves. Second?
Second.
Mr. James seconds. Any discussion? Okay, hearing no objections. Everyone in favor, raise your hand, please. And again, that's unanimous. And you will be able to do this electronically. Okay? All right. Next thing, this is starting on the budget. It's basically, the bylaws say the GM and the treasurer or designee must submit the proposed 2021 budget to the board of directors no later than October the 1st, 2020. So we need to develop a timeline and a procedure for developing the budget and present it to the board at next month's meeting. That's just develop the timeline and the procedure, okay, and actually start on it then. So officers and directors can participate as needed. So we need a simple motion to start work on the 2021 budget. Anyone?
Motion to start on 2021 budget.
Mr. Gillen makes the motion to start work on the 2021 budget. Wait a
Second.
second. Ms. Ertel seconds it. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. Again, everybody agrees with that, so that passes. Okay, the next thing is the committee assignments. What we've talked to everybody up here. We think that the maximum number of people on a committee is 7. If you get more than that, you just create stuff, okay? So we would say that. I think there should be a maximum of 3 board members on a committee. You are required by state law to have 2, okay? If you hold a committee meeting, you must take minutes, and you have to submit those minutes to the board. I will repeat, if you have a committee meeting, you gotta take minutes, and you gotta submit it to the board. A report from each committee to the board originally, we would say it'd be a maximum of 2 pages, preferably 1. We don't want diatribes, okay? But list, here's the good things, here's the things we need to work on, so we can get started. Preferably, the minimum questions that to start anyway, what's going well, what needs to improve. Now, in the committees, I'll just use be an ad hoc person, so I'm not on one, but I'll go to as many of the meetings as I possibly can. What we've come up with after talking to everybody in here and talking to other people who were on things in the past, we want to have a food and beverage committee, and that includes this building, okay, and that's sitting by itself. Then we want to have a golf committee, which would include the courses, pro shop, the training facility, the driving range, course maintenance, rangers, and the cart barn. That would be a golf committee. The third one is an airport, marina, fishing tournaments, if we can get that going, pleasure boat events, whatever, okay, for that particular one. We'll just call it the airport one to make it simple. 4 would be the recreation, which would include tennis, youth activities, and the fields that they use. The next one would be the admin committee, and that would include financial workings. The 6th would be the future and covenant expiration, because we certainly need to work on that kind of stuff to come up with whatever ideas we can. And the 7th one would be grounds maintenance. At the end of this, once we adjourn, I'm going to give each board member a list of the committees on a sheet of paper, and all you do is rank what committees you want, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. It also depends on how much you work. I know 2 of you work, so sometimes you can't get here during the day quite as easy as other people, but you need to do that. Then we'll take everybody's form, I'll sit them next to each other, and we'll look through it and see what we want. We want a mixture of old board members, okay, I'm sorry, experienced board members and new ones, okay, on there. Once this meeting is over with, if you are interested in serving on one committee or more, come to any of the board members. Please don't come to me because of some other stuff that's going on. Talk to any one of them. They will take your name and what you're interested in, and we'll compile it all into one thing, which will give us a chance to sit and do that and decide where the things go. We'll make a decision just hopefully in a couple of days at the most. Okay, so remember, interested residents, make sure that you let us know, and we'll send something out also by e-blast or something to residents saying, if you're interested, here's how to get your name on the list. Okay? So I need a motion if we want to adopt these committees. We'll get that on the floor and then go from there. Anybody make that motion?
I'll make the motion to adopt.
Okay, Mr. James makes that motion. We need a second.
Second. It's my day.
Ms. Sartell seconds
I
that.
want to keep the meeting moving.
Okay. Any discussions, Mr. James?
No, not this time.
Ms. Sartell?
Not at this time.
Mr. Becker?
I think we should limit the participation in the committees to members in good standing.
Oh, I totally agree. We can add that. I understand. With that, I think that's a good point. Okay, so you got that yet? Yeah, we'll definitely add that in there. Any other questions or comments?
Do we have? I think there are probably some committees that are in the process right now that may have some reports coming up that may be helpful going forward. Do we have any way to look at those and see if if there's some way for us to be able to gather that information.
I would certainly hope that whoever's on the committees right now would be willing to talk to us and let us know what's going on.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know any other way unless y'all got an idea.
I think some of that will be covered in the meetings with the department heads as well.
Yes, we do have a meeting. One of the steps that Mr. Abbey has already set up, we have a meeting set up with all the department heads next Thursday at 9 o'clock, I believe, in the morning, so that all of us who can get to the meeting will see who's the department head, you know, as a manager, and they're asking them, him, her, whatever, to tell us what's going well for them and what needs to be improved. But we need to see who the people are. And we talked, Ms. Raymond, you did tell me you would be able to get here on that one.
I thought it was this Thursday.
No, it's next Thursday. Well, let me know, and if not, we'll try to set up Zoom or whatever you need.
That's fine.
Okay.
Or I can meet with them myself.
Yeah, you can, I mean, but you'd have to be here during the day now. I
That's
mean,
fine, sir. I'll figure it out. Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else have any other thing?
One thing, Ernie,
Yes.
do we have existing charters for these committees, or are we going to develop charters for each of the committees?
I'm not sure of the answer to that. Can you all answer to that? Just golf, well, you had golf in the building, so that wouldn't work.
We have charters for some of these committees, but the committees don't in all cases match the groupings as they're listed on this sheet. But certainly Gus could present you with those charters to look at.
Okay, and we can make them as simple as we can. We do not need, you know, 2-page articles of that kind of stuff. Okay, so we can handle that with no problem. Once they're named to who's the chairperson on each one, we use them to go from there. Anybody else have anything? If not, thank you for coming. I know it was not what you think of as a regular meeting, but this is the stuff we have to do to get started. So, did we vote on that? Oops, I'm sorry. Nope, my mistake. We're going back. We need to vote on adopting the number of committees. Anybody want to make that motion?
Oh, it's me. It's just a vote. We just need the vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so we do need the vote. All in favor? Hands up. Okay, everybody agrees. So now, anything else from anybody? Okay, somebody make the motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to.
Ms. Urtel is on a roll tonight, so she's made a motion to adjourn, and we have a second from
Mr. James.
Mr. James. Thank y'all for coming.